بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. We greet you on this, the 17th day of the month of Jumadil Akhirah. I remember this is the 17th day here in Trinidad. By the time the video is on the internet, it will be not several more days from now. But at the time of the recording, it is the 17th day of Jumadil Akhirah, and so we have about 2.5 months left for the month of Ramadan. And this video is entitled Recitation of the Quran for Beginners and for Women. And we have been warning you again and again that the most important sunnah of all in the month of Ramadan is to recite the whole Quran. This is the sunnah, not only the sunnah of our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, but also the divine sunnah, because Allah himself recited the Quran. Allah himself recited the Quran in the month of Ramadan. This is what he says himself in Surah Al-Qiyamah. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فإذا قرأناه, and when we have recited it, فاتبع قرآن, you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you must follow that way of recitation. So it is also the divine sunnah to recite the whole Quran in the month of Ramadan. And of course, you, my students, you are now very well aware that you have to recite the Quran with the correct ajza. Ajza is the plural of juz, and the Farsi word in Iran is sipara, but this is Arabic. And in reciting the Quran, you must not be amongst the muqtasimin. كما أنزلنا على المقتسمين, Surah Al-Hijr. Allah sends a warning. He says, warn them, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. وَقُلْ إِنِّي أَنَا النَّذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. Tell them, I have been sent as a warner. I am a warner, and when I warn, I do so in a manner which is plain and clear. What is the warning? كَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الْمُقْتَسِمِينَ. Al-Muqtasimin, people who break up, who divide. Allah has sent down this warning upon them. What did they divide? What did they break up? الَّذِينَ جَعَلُوا الْقُرْآنَ عِدِّينَ. If you want to understand the meaning of the word iddin, you have to go back to muqtasimin, those who break up the Quran. Allah has himself divided the Quran, and he's done so. He divided it into surahs, and the first surah is Al-Fatiha, and it is the opening surah with which you open everything, and then the second is Al-Baqarah, and the third is Ali Imran, etc. So you do not divide the Quran any more than Allah has divided it. You cannot say that you're going to recite on the first day of Ramadan, you're going to recite until verse 141 of Surah Al-Baqarah, and the rest of that utter nonsense. Somebody has to stand up and pronounce this to be nonsense. We have to use strong language to destroy that falsehood. No, you cannot break up the Quran. You have to recite the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah. كَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الْمُقْتَسِمِينَ. The warning is sent down to the muqtasimin, people who break up, who cut, who cut and divide. الَّذِينَ جَعَلُوا الْقُرْآنَ عِدِّينَ. They are people who break up the Quran into bits and pieces. Biting it is the same as breaking it up. And I have given you this explanation. If you are not convinced that I am correct in my explanation, no problem, no need for any boxing glove. You can follow your understanding and leave us alone. That's all. No need for any fighting between us. We say that Allah is referring here to breaking up the Quran for the purpose of recitation. And that is, we condemn those who decide that they will recite until verse 141 of Surah Al-Baqarah on the first day. We condemn you. Yes, we condemn you. And on the second day you will recite until verse 252 and the rest of that utter nonsense. But if that's your choice, then you are free to have your choice. But we have explained again and again, as Ramadan is approaching, how to recite the Quran in Ramadan and then every month after Ramadan, in order to recite it correctly. And if you recite this Quran correctly, and you complete the recitation of the Quran in one lunar month, which is the Sunnah, then وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ جَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ حِجَابًا مَسْتُورًا. Allah will place a hijab between you and that godless world which today is corrupting the whole world and waging war on the religious way of life all over the world. They don't believe in the hereafter. They don't even have a conception of sin. Not at all. They could tell monstrous lies. 9/11 of course takes pride of place. But there are other lies. You could an act of terrorism to sabotage Russia's oil pipeline underneath the sea, and you did it, and you could say, no, we didn't do it, somebody else do it. They tell monstrous lies. They don't believe in sin. They don't believe that there's a last day and a judgment day. These are godless people. They don't believe in the hereafter. And if you recite the Quran the way it ought to be recited, Allah will put a hijab to protect you, separate you from them, and cover you and protect you. But this video is meant for those who are beginners, who are still learning how to recite the Quran in Arabic, who may have entered into Islam recently. Okay? For them we want to tell you, no, if you cannot finish your juz or your portion of the Quran on one day, then never mind. You can continue until the next day or the next day. You are not breaking up the Quran, not at all. They are breaking up the Quran when they decide in advance that we're going to recite until verse 141 of Al-Baqarah. And then the next day we'll verse until verse 252. They are the ones who are breaking up the Quran, not you. You are allowed to recite from the Quran what is easy for you. What is easy for you. Allah does not want to put you into difficulty. For us who are accustomed to reciting the Quran, it is not difficult for us to recite the whole juz in one day. It takes sometimes an hour, it takes sometimes less than an hour, sometimes it takes more than an hour, but we can do it. I've been doing it for years now. I have so many students around the world who are doing it. There are some who recite the Quran more than once for the whole month. They may recite it twice. But we're talking about you who are beginners. I don't want you to be disheartened. Recite what you can recite in one day. And if you cannot finish the juz, don't be worried, don't be afraid. Allah will not condemn you. The next day you can continue on the next until you finish the juz. And you continue like that. If you cannot complete the whole Quran in 1 month, never mind. You can continue to try to finish it in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months, never mind. But when you finish, you must start again. And when you finish, you must start again for the rest of your life. Every time you go on this journey, the journey will become shorter and shorter in time as you become more and more familiar with the language, until eventually you'll be able to do what all the rest of us are doing. You can complete the recitation of the Quran in 1 month. And when you're doing that, you get a sakina in your heart. Sakina, peace, contentment, tranquility. Sakina, peace, contentment, tranquility in your heart. Your life will be different. And Allah will send the angels. نَحْنُ أَوْلِيَاؤُكُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. We have come to be your helpers, to protect you, to take care of you in this life. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ, and in that life as well. That's what the angels will say. So this is a video meant to offer a word of comfort and guidance for beginners who have difficulty in reciting a complete juz in 1 day. The next part of this video applies to women. And even if I explain it 500,000 times, I still get questions. Sheikh, what am I to do when I have my monthly menses? How can I recite the whole Quran in 1 month? Could you guide us? So let me say it one more time. The Quran does not prohibit you from holding the Quran or touching the Quran while you have your menses. If there is a prohibition, it's not in the Quran, it's in the Sunnah or the Hadith, but it's not in the Quran. Excuse me. So when you have your menses and you stop the recitation of the Quran, then when the period, the menstrual period is over and you take your bath and you're now once again ritually clean, you can then recommence the recitation of the Quran. If during the remaining time before the month comes to an end, you can double up, you can increase your number of ajza per day to complete the Quran before the month, by the time the month ends, then do it. But if it cannot be done, it's too difficult for you, then what you do is you continue to recite the Quran normally. When you've taken your bath and you are now ritually clean, even though you have to continue after the new moon is seen. Never mind, you continue into the second month until you complete the Quran. Never leave the Quran incomplete. Always continue until you finish it. Never leave the recitation of the Quran incomplete when you're reciting it to complete it in 1 month. Never leave it incomplete. Always continue until you complete the Quran. You end the journey. This is what our Prophet spoke about, alayhi salatu wasalam. A journey which you take and you end, and when you reach the end, you begin again. And when you reach the end, you begin again. He praised this journey. This journey, of course, is the recitation of the Quran from cover to cover. When you complete the recitation of the Quran in the following month, then after that you can recite from any part of the Quran you choose until the new moon is seen. And when the new moon is seen, you will then recommence the recitation of the Quran. This is how a woman who sees a menstrual period should recite the Quran. We pray that Allah may bless us to live to see Ramadan. And we pray that those who have never recited the whole Quran in Ramadan and who have the capacity to do it, we pray that Allah may bless them to do it for this first time in their lives in this Ramadan that is coming. And for others who do not have the capacity to complete the whole Quran in 1 month, then recite whatever is easy for you. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.